We tend to think that we are human and we need to become spiritual. But of course, what the great mystics of the church and the spiritual leaders of the church always tell us is that we're born spiritual. We need to become human. We're born spiritual beings. We're born with the Spirit of God in our spirit. We're born spiritual beings. The really hard part is to become human. That's the tough part. And so during the Christmas season, we celebrate the incarnation, when God becomes human from the ground up. And it teaches us the great, great truth of the incarnation, that if we want to be more spiritual, it's not to get up to heaven, it's not to get out of earth somehow, it's to get down into being deeper in being human, more fully, more deeply, human and humane. That's the spiritual path that Jesus shows us. We have to become human from the ground up. We humans are very different than any other animal, because dogs don't have to do anything to become a true dog, and horses don't have to do anything to become a horse, and cats don't have to do anything to become a true cat. But we have to learn how to be human, because we can be people who are inhuman and we can be inhumane. And all we have to do is you don't have to read the newspaper very much or look at the TV very much, and this week would be a perfect example of it, to see people who are not yet fully human, who have not taken up the project of becoming more deeply and fully human. And that's the project we have to take up. When we're little kids, our parents help us with all of their teaching, and the Christian community that we've been baptized into us brings the gospel, makes it present to us, and tries to teach us how to become fully human and humane. But there's a time when we have to take up the project of being human ourselves, and we have to say, I've got to make myself become fully and deeply human, and deeply and fully humane. Nobody else can do it for me. I've got to make my life my first work of art. I've got to ask God to show me how to be more human. And so they said to the gentleman, they said to the man, look, what do you think about, we would like a sort of black and white answer from you. What do you think about, all these hot button Catholic issues these hot button social and political issues that Catholics are always fighting over, obsessing over? What? We want to know what you think about it. Come on, tell me. And so the man says, I don't think I could say very much about those hot button issues that Catholics are always fighting over. He said, some of those have a lot to do with women. And if I've learned anything as a guy, it's that women ask questions that men don't tend to answer. And so, what? I don't have much to say about those. I'd have to talk to a woman first. I'd have to talk to some women first. I'd want to know what their experience is. I want to know what happens in their hearts when we talk about these issues. I'd want to hear their voice. Truth is, I don't have a lot to say about that. I really would need to talk to some other people, and especially some women first. So I said, well, wait a second. There's all kinds of issues here that the church has teachings about. I mean, hot button social issues that church has teachings about. What? Come on, give us an answer. And he said, I know what the church teaches about these things, but you know what? There's something I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's just something there that I don't think we've gotten it all straight yet. I can't quite put my finger on it, but when I look at the church's teaching, I think, there's something there that I think we need to keep at it. And I can't quite put my finger on what it is. He said, I'm sorry, that's how I feel when I hear the teaching on these. Well, but, they said, well, come on now. This is pretty clear teachings by the church about some of these hot button issues. He said, yeah, there is some clear teaching about it, but, I'd actually find that I would like the church to say some more about people who are on the edges and the margins. So, like, what about a guy who's out of work and he's just lost his home and he's living out of his car? And then how do those hot button social issues, what do they have to do with him? And what about the woman who's been traumatized by being sexually abused? And so then how do all those hot button issues, how does that affect? I would like to hear more about the details of actual real people's lives and how our teachings would affect that. I'd like to hear more about that. And they said, well, now come on now. There's pretty darn clear teachings about a lot of things, and so you got to get on board. You got to make a statement whether you're for them or you're against them. Let's get it. Come on, don't mess around. Let's get it. You got to get on one side of this line, or you got to get on the other side of the line, and then you got to throw rocks at the other people on the other side. He said, well, here's the thing. I know that the Catholic Church is led by our leaders. We receive guidance from our leaders, but you know what? We also receive guidance from the people of God. And he said, I would actually like to know more about what the people of God, about where they're living and what they think about this when it comes out of their devotion to God and the lives they've got their feet on the ground and they're living their lives. I'd like to know more. I'd like to hear more from the people of God, actually. How human that is. Isn't that deeply human? Isn't that just deeply human and humane? And they say to him, no, look, if you're going to be part of this group, you got to get on board or you got to get off. You can't mess around here. You can't be part of our group. And he says, I like being part of a group, but I'd like to be part of a group where I can agree with the things that I think are good, but I can also criticize my own group and say, these things I don't think are so good. I'd like to be part of this group, but he said, I also want to think my own thoughts and I want to feel my own feelings. I don't want a group in which I have to follow the mob mentality and have somebody else's feelings and somebody else's thoughts. I want my own thoughts and my own feelings. And he said, I don't want a group where you have to line up and make some sort of absolute declarations and shoot from the lip, shoot from the lip and make an absolute statement about something. He said, sometimes I like to study things. I think we need to stop shooting from the lip and we need to study and go deeper. We need to do some in-depth analysis before we shoot from the lip. Isn't that so human? Isn't that so deeply human and so deeply humane? On the one side, we have a culture that says, no, you've got to shoot from the lip and you got to come up with absolute statements on the hot button issues. And then on the other side, we have a man who says, I don't know what to say about that yet. I'd have to talk to some people who have some experience with that. I know what the church teaches about that, but something's always bothered me, and I can't quite put my finger on it. I don't think we've quite got this just right yet. And the man who says, I need to study some more about that. And I'd like to hear the church give us some greater details about these particular cases. And I know that the church teaches through our leaders, but he also teaches through our people. And I want to hear what's in the hearts of the people. That is so human. That is so much more human than this. And that is what the incarnation calls us to, is to become more deeply human. The wise men are the seekers. They're the seekers after the truth. And that's all of us. We're supposed to be the wise men and the wise women who are journeying, who are willing to be bothered by Jesus enough to get up out of our lives and to get on a trip that takes us to a fuller and a deeper life and a fuller and a deeper truth. And along the way, we become more deeply human. And the way that we become more deeply spiritual is to become more deeply human and more deeply humane.